All right, so it started recording. And I want to thank everyone then. This is the Buffalo Nations Grasslands Alliance request for proposals for a conservation leasing on tribal lands grant. And like I said, this is recorded and the recording will be available on our YouTube channel at BNG Alliance. And we'll make the YouTube link available on our social media and website. And upon request, if you want me to email it to you, let me know. And please feel free to share any of this information, our RFP, the webinar link. Feel free to share it with whomever you think may find it useful. I will send a RFP reminder out in January. And the proposals aren't due until February 6th, but I'll send out a reminder in a few weeks and I'll include the webinar link and also a frequently asked questions information sheet. That will be updated with your questions from today. It's a work in progress, but I wanted to see what other questions you in the audience may have that I could add to that information sheet, and I will share it with everyone. Hopefully next week, everything will be posted on our websites and Facebook page. And there we go. Sorry. So a lot of you have heard of our organization already. If you want, you can learn more about us on our website, which is binga.org. We also have a Facebook and Instagram page, so you can follow us there. We do have, like I said, a YouTube channel, which is where this video will be posted. We actually don't have much content on our YouTube page, but hopefully that'll change in the future. And we do have a newsletter. You can, again, go to our website and to the Contact Us page and sign up for that monthly newsletter. I just wanted to give a brief introduction to the employees of BNGA. Two of us are here today. Obviously me, I'm the grassland specialist, and if you ever have any questions about this RFP, this proposal process, let me know. I'm enrolled in Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. The other BNGA team member that's here is Sean Grassel. He's Lord Brule Sioux. Oh, there he is waving. He is our CEO, and he'll help answer questions today, and he's a good source as well if you want to reach out to him about the proposal or wildlife or whatever. And I have listed four other team members. Marissa Dominguez is enrolled in Cheyenne River. Tony Morissette is Chippewa Cree on the Rocky Boy Reservation in Montana. Tara Walks is Crow. And then we do have a new employee also from Rocky Boy. She'll be starting in a few weeks. And Tracy Tyner will be the Montana grassland specialist, working with tribal producers on Montana reservations and helping them find technical and financial resources for their livestock operations. So I have our job titles listed here, and feel free to reach out to us at any time if you are interested in doing restoration or conservation work on your reservations. So I just want to briefly mention the purpose of BNGA before we start talking about this grant opportunity, because they're related. We are a nonprofit, native-led nonprofit that supports 16 Native nations within the Northern Great Plains with capacity building, conservation, restoration, and creating sustainable nature-based economies. And one of our goals is to identify ways to support Native nations financially. For those of you that don't know, the Northern Great Plains includes the mixed grass prairie of the northern portion of the Great Plains, and then some short grass and sagebrush habitat as well. There are 16 tribes that have reservations or tribal trust land within this area, and so we are working with most of the tribes in North and South Dakota and Montana. So our purpose is, again, to ensure that these Native nations have technical and financial resources to help plan and act on their vision for traditional lands and waters. And we have this grant opportunity that hopefully will assist with that. So we have a grant opportunity that we are sub-awarding to tribal departments The goal is to support these departments in leasing and restoring approximately 3,000 acres of cropland to grasslands. And with this grant, we would be providing financial support to the tribal departments to secure and pay for the leases of these croplands. And then we'll also be providing technical support if needed during the application process for the lease or for this grant, and also to grant recipients. So I tried to provide some visual aids as much as possible in this PowerPoint, but our goal again is to help tribal departments identify 3,000 acres of cropland on tribal land that possibly could be restored to grassland. We, BNGA, would offer financial support for the leases themselves, as well as technical support for the grassland restoration process, with ultimately hoping to have 3,000 acres of grassland restored in the end. As far as technical support, I tried to summarize some of the things that we would provide or could provide related to this grant opportunity. That includes maybe developing conservation plans for the leased lands, developing grassland restoration plans for this leased lands, helping it to identify funding sources for the actual grassland restoration, and then also assisting if we can with navigating the leasing procedures for your respective tribal or BIA offices, and then developing community and youth engagement activities. Just to let you know, this is just a small subset of things that BNGA provides as far as technical support, and it's available to anyone. Even if you decide that your tribal department can't take advantage of this grant opportunity at this time, you can still reach out to us and ask us for advice and technical support. We provide all of these things for free to anybody, regardless if they're applying for our grants or not. So let's talk about this grant opportunity and the eligibility for it. First of all, as far as who is eligible to apply, this would just be tribal departments or programs, if you want to call yourself that, that represent or serve one or more of the 16 Native nations listed here. So these are the same ones that were on the map I shared previously. And so if you see your tribe on here, then you've made check the first box. Here's the map again. I just wanted to point out, maybe some of you aren't aware of this, but Turtle Mountain, Chippewa, their main reservation, Belcourt are out east in the tallgrass prairie of North Dakota, but they have a lot of tribal trust land in eastern Montana, western North Dakota, even some in South Dakota. So we are there to support them in addition to the 15 other tribes in the Northern Great Plains. So as far as what type of tribal department is eligible, it's really any tribal department that is involved in restoring and increasing grassland habitat on their reservations. And so I'd have a small list of examples of tribal departments, but again, it can be really any department that is going to be involved in restoring cropland back to grassland on tribal land. So wildlife programs, cultural preservation programs, water resource programs, buffalo programs, all of those would be eligible to apply. And then included in that are tribal enterprises and businesses. We recognize that some tribes have cattle or buffalo operations that are considered tribal businesses. There might be, even in the case of my tribe, Standing Rock Sioux, our voting or representative districts are allowed to have their own businesses. So some of them have their own buffalo or cattle herds, and those are considered tribal enterprises. So if your tribe wants to expand the pasture available to their cattle or buffalo operations, this might be an avenue for doing that. Just as a reminder, this is not available for individuals or Native or nonprofit organizations, whether they're Native-led or not. So we encourage collaborations between tribal departments that are applying for this leasing grant and individuals and nonprofits, but it has to be the tribal department that applies for this for this grant and who acquires the lease from their tribe. So as far as the project of eligibility, oh, by the way, I'm going to mute my video. I hope I'm not distracting anybody. There we go. I'm distracting myself. Okay, oops. So as far as the project eligibility, the main location requirement is that this lease of cropland is on tribal or individual trust land, whether on or off the reservation, or fee simple land held by a tribe, not an individual, and that also can be on or off the reservation. So it has to be tribal, individual trust land, or fee simple owned by the tribe. Another project eligibility requirement is that it's currently cropland. The goal is to help restore cropland back to grassland. And there may be some exceptions that individually you can ask us about. If your department is currently leasing some cropland and has been in the process of already restoring it, there may still be an option for you to apply for this. So I encourage you to reach out if you have a question about the current, I guess, land designation of the land that you want to lease or are currently leasing, but we are looking for cropland to restore. And just to give some examples, what are we looking for as far as we're interested in helping restore, or we are paying for the leases of cropland, and we're looking for tribal departments that are planning to fit that cropland and restoration of it into like a conservation plan. So as far as what you plan to do with that cropland once you restore it, maybe the goal is to increase wildlife habitat, increase pasture area for buffalo, increase habitat for plants that are culturally significant. Maybe you have a severe erosion problem and you want to convert some cropland near water bodies to improve water quality. So there's a lot of examples of conservation priorities and goals that would fit this leasing grant. So one question that keeps coming up, and it's a good question, is how much are we going to pay for a proposal? We have available $750,000, and we are willing to pay for a lease for up to 5 years. And so if you have a leasing project that would use up this entire amount of money, we probably would work with you to lower that. We really want to make this available for as many tribal departments within the Northern Great Plains as possible, but we're willing to pay for up to 5 years of a lease and if you have a specific question about this, please reach out to us. If you want to know if your grant budget is too high, just ask us. So as far as applying for this, we are making use of Google Form, and it's a simple proposal form that we are asking you to fill out. And I'm going to take a bit, stop sharing, and I'm going to make sure that I'm sharing the form so I hope that's visible to everybody. Does everyone see the Conservation on Tribal Lands proposal?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, so that link is within the RFP form. So I shared the RFP, and I'm not sure if the form link also is I'll have to look to see if that's available on Facebook and the website. But if you're having trouble finding the link to this form, let me know. Um, I haven't seen anybody applying for it. No one's emailed me yet to say they can't find this, but this is the opening page to the form. Um, just be aware that I think if you start applying or filling out this form using a Google account, it will save your answers. But if not, you just be aware that if you close the web page, close down your computer, your browser, all of your answers may be lost. So what I would suggest is look at the RFP. There's a link to it here. And we put the questions that we want you to answer in the RFP. And also, as I'll show, it's not the end of the world if you start filling this out. Um, oops, let me see if it's going to switch. Okay. So what I would recommend is looking at the main questions, and I'll show them to you and fill those out like on a Word document first, share them with your coworkers, and then when you have have all of your answers finalized, then you can copy and paste your answers, your longer answers into this form. So as far as the beginning questions, because they're required, I'm just going to say, just make up some quick answers just to show you um, what this form looks like and some of the main questions that we would like you to answer. And I don't know. And I won't lie, I'm part of Standing Rock. Okay, so those are pretty easy answers to provide. Um, so I wanted to bring attention to some of the questions, the longer answer questions that we are asking. First, deal with the tribal leasing policy of the tribe that you are working for. And the first question asks you to describe the process your tribal department will follow to acquire a cropland lease. And so this may be very simple. Maybe your tribe and BIA just will let tribal departments bid for and acquire a lease, and that's that. But you may need to look into to make sure that your department doesn't have to go through extra steps. You may need to get a resolution from your tribal council. There may be special permissions that your tribe requires for your department. And one thing to consider is, for example, if your long-term plan is to maybe graze animals, whether buffalo or cattle, on this restoration, um, you can lease it, no problem, as cropland, but if you start putting animals on it, you may need to then develop a grazing plan and have like a stocking rate for that, even though it's still cropland. So those are things you might want to look into. Think about, ask what steps your tribal department needs to take to apply for grants, to acquire a lease, and then depending on what you plan to do with that land, once you lease it and restore it, you may need to talk to more people and get other permissions. So that's kind of what we're asking for here. And then the second question is very basic, is, what are the dates and timelines for acquiring a lease? What is the bid deadline? What's the due date for deposits? So that one I hope is fairly easy to answer. Oh, and I guess I should write something. I'm just going to write my name so I can go on to the next screen. And you can do this too. You can just write simple words just so that you can get a feel of what questions are being asked, and then you can delete your application without me ever knowing. So the next page is asking the project narrative, and we're asking you to describe the conservation priorities that your leasing and restoration project will address. So you have 3,000 characters. This can be very short, or you can max out the 3,000 characters. Maybe there's a particular wildlife species you want to provide more habitat for. Maybe you just want to expand the pasture available for your buffalo herd. It can be very simple. So we just want to know how this will benefit the conservation priorities of your tribe. This is If you need any sort of technical support, we're happy to provide that. So this is an opportunity for you to check any of these that you think you may need help with. And if you don't feel like you need any assistance from us, you can say so. Oops. Let me go to the next page. And the next long question, we're asking if you've explored funding options for grassland restoration, and from who. If you're unsure or have other, go ahead and check that. And then the last two long questions pertain to your grassland restoration itself. So we want to know if you have thought about what it takes to do a grassland restoration. Have you done some research? Also, if you need assistance, we welcome you to ask us for that because even though this is a competitive grant, it's really important for us to make sure people get this money and that we help with the restoration. This is our goal, is to help with grassland restoration and conservation. And so we not only want to provide funding, but we want to provide assistance. So answer this question as far as what your plan is for your department, as far as proceeding with the restoration of your leased cropland, and then give us, if you don't need any assistance, that's fine, say so. Otherwise, let us know where you think you may need some assistance. It might be with identifying sources of funding for the restoration project, just advice as far as where to find native seed for your restoration, things like that. And then finally, the budget questions are really, really simple. The reason for that is because we are only paying for the lease itself. So all we need to know from you is the number of acres. I'm going to say half a section, 320 acres. I'm going to make a number here, but you provide us the cost per acre for renting the cropland, the number of years that the lease will be, and then any other fees associated, like administrative fees that are associated with acquiring the lease. And I'm just going to put like $300 here. I want to let you know is that if you're, if the administration fees could potentially change, or there's other information, if that's what it's asking here. Any other information about the cost of securing the lease that you need to bring our attention to, you can add this here. If we get to the point where we are really interested in your proposal, we'll reach out to you, and if there needs to be some adjustments to some of these budget line items, like the administrative fees, maybe they do increase every year, we can talk about it then. So don't worry about, like, if you don't know what the administration fees will be each year, you can make note of that. The same goes for the indirect cost. We will pay indirect costs for, I believe it was the first $25,000 of your budget. So you can provide the percent of indirect costs that for your department. If you have any questions about this, let us know. We actually do have an Excel template that you can fill out to help you calculate what the indirect costs would be um, for this grant proposal. But again, if there's any questions or if you make a slight error on the indirect costs, we can adjust that if we find that your proposal is something we're interested in funding. So there's room to fix any errors if there are any. So once you fill out those questions, you can, oh, whoops, I guess I submitted that. Well, you do have the option of clearing the form or canceling it. And if you do make the mistake of, you're just practicing or looking at the questions and you submit by accident, just send me an email and let me know that to ignore that submission. Otherwise, I probably will figure it out if it's a bunch of silly answers like I was providing. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Um, Hopefully that's what shows up on the screen. And what I just had on the next few slides are what I just went over as far as the proposal application. We do ask for some longer answers as far as your tribal leasing policy, your conservation priorities, which would be the project narrative and your restoration plan. And then as far as the budget, we're primarily looking for the number of acres, the cost per acres, and the number of years of your lease. and then any administrative fees. We will enter these numbers into our own Excel sheet. Um, so you don't have to provide like any documents, just these numbers. And then same with the indirect costs, you just have to pay, I mean, not pay, sorry, you just have to add the percent indirect costs and keep in mind that there's a limit to how much indirect costs that we can pay because just to let you know, this grant is paid with federal funds. So there's some limits as far as what we can provide as far as indirect costs. And I thought there was something, okay, I'll just keep going. Oh, there we go. Additional documents. So we're not requiring you to submit any additional documents at the time that you submit your proposal form. When we review your proposal and we think it's something that we might be able to fund, we'll reach out to you and we will request these other documents. So that includes a map of the proposed leasing area or project area, um, current photos or photos of the current land use. And then if you have the lease already, we would request a copy of that just to verify that, yes, what you're requesting matches what's actually on your lease. So as far as evaluation criteria, it's really simple, and I feel this is almost a silly slide, but what we're looking for is the feasibility of your department leasing cropland and restoring it to grassland. And then we also will look at what are the benefits, what are the conservation priorities that you explained in your proposal form. So that primarily what we're looking for is feasibility and the conservation benefit. And then any documents you provide us, all information that you provide us will be private, held in confidence, and becomes part of our records, and we don't share that publicly. And if all applicants will be notified of the outcome of their proposal, and you definitely can reach out to us to ask us questions in case we do reject your proposal. And just to be upfront, as far as if one thing that's always good to know when you're applying for something is what is required of you if you are awarded the grant and you decide to accept the grant. So, on our end, we will require grant reporting, their like progress reports, final reports. And so there will be some paperwork on your end that you'll have to fill out for us as part of your grant agreement. And in addition to that, if your proposal is funded, Bingo will need, again, following documentation, NCRIT documentation. We have an applicant controls questionnaire, um, example, or most recently completed single audit. And so as a reminder, because this grant is federally funded, we received a grant that is made up of federal funds. On our end, we do have to ask for additional documents from any recipients of this subaward. So I just wanted to let you know that because sometimes it's not always sometimes, but it is always good to know ahead of time what you may need to provide if you accept the grant. So before we start looking at some of the questions and hopefully answer all of them, a reminder that the proposal is due on Friday, February 6th by 5 p.m. And I would suggest that you make sure that you have access to the Google form questions and let me know if you have a hard time finding that proposal form link or have a hard time opening it. Um, Status for notification date and expected time frame for fund distribution. I guess that as far as the fund distribution, it depends on your tribe's tribal leasing policy. But I forgot to put down the date that we're going to notify applicants. But I would hope it would be as soon as possible. We will review them as they come in, is basically what we'll do. So I would say within a couple of weeks of receiving your application, we'll review them. One other thing to note is that if after February 6th, there's still funding available in this grant, we will consider proposals that are received after February 6th, and we'll let people know if we are receiving proposals beyond that date. So, if you have any questions after today's webinar, you can most certainly email me, Renee Schmidt or rschmidt@binga.org. And I apparently deleted Sean's information, but you can also send him, I would say email me first, but you can also email Sean, which is sgrassel@binga.org. And with that, I will stop sharing the screen and I guess Sean and I will look at any questions you may have, or you can go ahead and start typing any questions.
Right, there was one question, but I answered it.
Oh, okay. Um, okay. I wonder. Okay, I was sorry. I was just looking to see if I could unmute anyone, but apparently I cannot.
Yeah, we have plenty of time for questions if there are any.
Oh, did you address
Oh,
Joel's?
I was looking at the wrong tab here, but
Okay. Sorry, Joel.
um, can you see the questions, Renee? If you can, please go ahead.
Okay, I could read it. So we have a question about the RFP. So in section 3.2 of the RFP, it says that you will consider proposals for renewing leases of restored cropland. Is this true and or worth proposing? I don't know, Sean, do you want to answer that?
Sure. So that's true. It would probably be lower priority. So our priority is taking existing croplands and putting those lands back to grass, or at least supporting that. And so if a program already is leasing land and those lands have already been restored, but funding is needed to continue that lease, that's something we'll consider, but it'll be just a much lower priority.
Oh, we have another question. Oh yeah, and is this grant opportunity restoration of croplands only? Yes, it's not. So if you're asking for like range improvement, pasture improvement, no. If it's already grass, um, this is not what this leasing grant is for. So if you've identified a pasture that's in really poor condition, um, if it's already deemed grassland or hayland, no, we wouldn't be able to provide lease funding for that. I don't know if that's exactly what was being asked about. One of the things that I didn't add to the presentation is how to build upon this. And I don't know if Shauna, you wanted to explain what Laura Brule did. Um, I guess we've been talking for about half an hour, and there might be some time, but um, one thing you could do is lease cropland and potentially put it into a cost share program like CRP, since Bingo would be paying for the lease, any any financial incentive from putting it into a cost share program like CRP would be given to the tribal departments, after which the tribal department can decide how they want to use that funding. And one thing that could be done is to invest in renewing the lease themselves after we're done paying for it. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you mentioned Lord Brule and Joel Bish is one of the participants in the webinar, but yeah, one of the things that could be done is, if the lease were acquired to cropland, is to put those lands into CRP. And with CRP, quite often there's a lot of incentives, and which will cover the costs or much of the costs of the actual restoration, so seeding cost, cost for the seed, etc. And then the tribal program would then receive the revenue off that rental contract. So not only, is are those lands being restored, for the benefit of wildlife and water quality and all the other ecosystem services, the revenue that could be generated, could go back into a program so the program could do more conservation work.
And they're usually, so from my understanding, a lot of the cost share programs like CRP and FSA have a period where a producer restores the land and they can't hay it, they can't graze cattle initially for a few years, but then they can. And so that may be an opportunity for the department to either cut the hay themselves for their own buffalo, or maybe even lease it out for grazing or haying if the department themselves is not involved in those activities. Okay. Well, I will just say that we've had some good questions, and if anyone has any more, we'll take a couple more minutes, or maybe not even that long, for you to type some. I don't want us to be sitting here staring at each other, or just me and Sean staring at each other. But if you do have any more specific questions, because we're well aware that each tribe has very different policies, government policies, leasing policies, so it might be easier for you to reach out to us and request a phone call or your own personal Zoom meeting to address those. So we welcome that. Please email us if you have any questions. And even over the Christmas break, we'll be checking email. So make it a priority to get back to you as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I will end it. Stop recording.